Youth Coalition Candidate Forum. And we were formed in 2012 to do this kind of work, to leverage and bring stakeholders to the table to create a common agenda. We've done groundbreaking work by taking folk out of their comfort zone and silos to really bring our anchoring institutions together in our community that really can put their arms around us. So today is a real opportunity to continue to carry out that work. And we're happy to have our host, Yvette Harris, and our candidate, Gepsie Metellus. So I will turn this over to Yvette to get us started. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Yvette Harris of Harris Public Relations, and I'm excited and honored to be conducting this one-on-one with you. I'm excited to always work with the Overtown Children and Youth Coalition. So I know we have quite a few questions, and I know we have some questions that other people want to ask, so we'll get right to it. So the first section deals with children and youth. Many childcare centers have closed due to the pandemic. Do you have a plan to help these businesses navigate through the next few years? And what is that plan?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Harris, for moderating once more. Thank you, Overtown Youth and Children Coalition, for the opportunity. Always a pleasure to join fellow nonprofit sector professionals. I know that our conversation this afternoon will be rich, insightful, and hopefully will, show us a path forward in terms of how we move beyond COVID, right? And so your first question was around the early learning facilities, I would say, that have had to close, like many other businesses, small businesses throughout the community, and the kind of assistance that they would need. And so I would say, one, I know that there are federal funds that were made available. This was the round one through the CARES Act, made available some dollars to Miami-Dade County to support a number of industries, a number of sectors. I think the county began to do that, and it's my understanding that there are some funds still remaining that can be used for targeted assistance. But even in using these funds and continuing to advocate with the federal government to go with the second round of funding, which is known as HEROES, I would invest some time and talking to the various owners and operators of these facilities to better understand. We understand that they've been shut down. We understand there's been no revenue because children haven't been coming, and so payments have not been made. We understand that COVID has impacted everyone in this manner. But I think it's important to better understand what their issues are, what their issues were pre-COVID, what their issues are mid-COVID, and what kind of assistance they would want to see the county provide to them. And when there are private entities that could also provide support, we're talking Children's Trust, or we're talking Early Learning Coalition, where those opportunities lie, where there are opportunities for state government to come in and provide additional support so that we can address their specific needs. Because I think it's too easy for me to assume that what they need right now is an injection of capital. We recognize that they do, but I think we need to be a little bit more targeted. And to be more targeted, you need to understand the nature of the challenge or the issue that you're addressing so that your prescription be very specific and very tailor-made.
Thank you for that. So the digital divide continues to affect communities, including Overtown. And some challenges for various students and families. How do you plan to address that as it relates to maybe their schooling, their aftercare, and then just their quality of life?
I like to say that on this issue of the digital divide, it is our modern day civil rights issue. And it's got repercussions for our children who are in school. It's got repercussions for our low to moderate income earners, low wage earners, lower skilled earners, people who need to be upskilled in order to not only participate in this new economy that's driven by technology, but also to be able to participate in the new opportunities that we know are going to come as a result of these new technologies, right? So in terms of the children in schools, we know that there's an issue of connectivity for many of our neighborhoods. And so where the county, along with state and federal and even private support, can band together to address this need. For example, I know that Bell South or AT&T, excuse me, Comcast as well, these private enterprises have made available lower cost plans for low income families to access Wi-Fi. And so that's one small step, right? But this connectivity issue is one that we should address countywide to be sure that all of these partners, through the various opportunities and benefits that they receive from the county, this ought to be one small thing that they can do in return to benefit the larger community, in particular, those low to moderate income households that have to pay for that connectivity and who cannot afford to choose between paying the Wi-Fi and buying food. So I think that that's one. Two, I think the county needs to really partner with the school district in order to better understand where the district is investing, where the gaps are, so that in terms of connectivity, we can have a common game plan in terms of making sure that our families and our children have the tools, right? So the computers, the tablets, the phones, that they have the tools to work, that the parents, and I think we're seeing this since remote learning started mid-COVID, many of our parents are not able to supervise, not able to monitor, not able to assist. Some of our parents can't even turn on the devices. And so that's an issue to address collaboratively with the district and to figure out how we expand opportunities for these same parents to learn, because this is not just about them learning to support their kids. And we know that our parents want our children to succeed. We know they want the best for them. We know they want the best for them, but they have to also be supported and acquiring those skills for the kids, but also for their long-term economic success. Because we all know that our economy is being reshaped and redefined by technology. And for those of us who can Zoom and can work remotely and can navigate all these applications are poised to succeed in this new economy. So we don't want to leave anybody behind. And unfortunately, there are too many potential people to be left behind in Black and Brown communities.
So as we segue, our numbers are rising. Our schools are being forced to open. Some of them have shortages of cleaning supplies and just basic supplies to be able to navigate the children going back to school. We don't know, there's also reports that some of the children and the administrators are coming down with COVID and they're having to, return back home, closing of schools, reopening of schools. Do you think that we might be moving too fast in this process?
Definitely. I most definitely think we're moving too fast. Now, I say that recognizing that there needs to be a balance between how we go back to this new normal, how we adapt to this new normal, what precautions we take in order to support people who are going back to work, going back to school, going back to their livelihood, to going back to their business enterprises. We recognize that we need the activity, but for me, the priority is life. And so if we want to open up, I think we ought to be really strict around, not only continuing to mask up, to social distance, to sanitize, all of the things that we know we ought to be doing. If anything, expanding the physical distancing recommendation that's been made, right? So that we can demonstrate that, in fact, if we're in this together, we're going to protect ourselves together so that we can recover together. And the more each of us takes on that personal sense of responsibility, the faster and the more sustainable our recovery. And even having said that, I recognize that the governor, the county mayor, local leaders are having to grapple with this difficult issue. I think many of us in this sector are also balancing out, okay, how do we go back? How do we allow for opportunities to continue to serve the clients, the people who depend on our services, while doing so safely. Safely meaning protecting our clients, protecting our team members, right? To ensure that we're not rushing to judge or rushing to open up when in fact there are too many risks still around, too many unknowns, too many things, too many things that could get that positivity rate to shoot up like it's beginning to. That hospitalization rate is beginning to, there's an uptick in that area too, and there are more infections, right? So this is a pandemic. So I think part of our challenge is to ensure, open, up to date, and honest communication with our community members, with parents who are having to, you know, bring their children back to school, either because they need to go back to work or because school is a good environment for that child's nurturing. I think the more information parents have, the more they have access to maybe seeing what the lay of the land, what the school environment looks like, the classroom, the cafeteria, if that's where the children are eating, whatever it is that the school has put in place to ensure a safe return, our parents need to see it. Just as the rest of our community need to understand what's happening. We need honest information, up-to-date information, timely, and information distributed throughout the networks that we trust.
Thank you for that. So Black and Brown communities like District 3 have been disproportionately affected by COVID-19. Homelessness, overcrowding, lack of healthcare, access to healthcare. What do you think that you would put into place to really address each and every one of these challenges that are faced?
Significant challenges indeed, Yvette, significant challenges. So I think two things. On the one hand, there's this need to provide relief, to provide support immediately. Right? We're talking food, we're talking ensuring that people have access to testing and to contact tracing. And for many members of our own Black and Brown communities, that they have access to preventive health services so that they can monitor and manage their chronic conditions. But beyond the immediacy, I think that we need to, as a community of Black and Brown populations, we need to convene, I would say, a working group made up of representatives, institutions, and individuals who represent these same communities so that we can look at what recovery, sustainable recovery might look like. What should be done to prevent homelessness? First of all, the homeless crisis is at our doorstep. It's at our doorstep. You drive around Overtown and you see it before your very eyes. And so this is an area where we know that there are resources available through Homeless Trust and the other agencies that are responsible for this area, or who, not responsible, but who work in this area. We need to convene them to understand what is going to be the immediate and long-term game plan to address this issue. Same thing, we're trying to figure out how we minimize evictions, right? This isn't the time for families to be put out in the streets. And so what tools, what legal tools do we have? What can we do to incentivize landlords to go into mediation with their tenants in order to really minimize the big impact, the negative impact that all of us are going to face, including these landlords who insist on evicting people. So evictions, homelessness, food distributions, health issues, right? How we look at how to be able to ensure that throughout our communities, the network of federally qualified health clinics, the network of clinics that are tied to Jackson, how we ensure tighter collaboration so that even if it's a neighborhood-based approach, that people know which facilities are accessible to them or in their immediate environment, and how we bring on other institutions and the nonprofit sector to ensure that we're looking at a collective impact model to address these things. And so this idea of a convening, in my view, would be to create the ultimate collective impact model so that we bring together all of these entities who are working in different spheres, but all related to this crisis, so that we can identify lessons learned as well as best practices to move forward, so that not only do we have a plan to address the immediate fallout of COVID, but that there be some lessons learned for the next time we face either a disaster or, heaven forbid, another pandemic.
Thank you for that. So the small businesses in District 3 struggle with scalability, probably more so than any other areas in our cities. Limited access to capital, paying their clients, their staff, permits, climate, just a host of challenges that other communities might not be faced with. Can you give us some examples on how you would bring some resources to these businesses that would benefit the entrepreneurs, the mom and pop stores, the ones that really are the foundation of our communities? If you can speak to that.
Thank you. And so we know, based on a number of studies, a bunch of studies done in the past, we know that at the end of the day, one of the major issues to Black and Brown small business owners and enterprises is lack of access to capital, right? And so how we make this capital accessible, right? What tools does the county have to maybe create revolving loan programs for these small business enterprises? What tools or what leveraging capabilities does the county have to partner with other entities that might make this capital increasingly more available to, again, the same population of business owners and enterprises, right? What kinds of capacity building strategies or activities do these business owners want to have? Because again, I think it's too easy to say that you would create a capacity building program, but you don't want to create anything that's not had the input of the small business owners and enterprises. So again, I would pivot to convening a sampling of these small business owners and enterprises, various sizes, various communities, to hear what their vision is, what their ideas are, what their suggestions are, and what their needs are. Because again, you always craft a better solution when it addresses a need that's been identified and a need that's been corroborated by the people who are suffering, or by the people who are impacted. And so hearing from them, right? So if it's about incentives, what kind of incentives do you think would work for you? If it's about incentivizing even county workers, right, to maybe certify more businesses and do so, in a faster way. Even if it's about creating a scorecard so that our community can know how many new, small, women-owned, minority-owned business enterprises are there that were certified recently. Where are they? What fields are they in? What's the percentage of their share of revenue from the county, right? And so I think having a number of these strategies in place would be a good place to start. But fundamentally, you got to talk to business owners to know what they want so that you can go out and craft a solution.
Okay.
In addition to your own ideas.
Right. I'm going to peek over into some of the questions from community members. One of the things that community members often feel that elected officials are disconnected from our reality and make decisions without our input, which kind of speaks to some of the things that you've said. What are some of the ways that you are committed to staying connected, accessible, and responsible to community members' concerns?
I intend to remain so in every way. So one, look how this pandemic has forced us all to discover Zoom, right? And the convenience of Zoom. And so I think this is one way to maintain engagement with community members. But beyond Zoom, I think it's important to be face-to-face with constituents, with residents. It's important to visit to tour your community, to tour your neighborhoods and see things with your own eyes. You need to see the illegal dumping. You need to see the trash on the street. You need to see the decrepit look of certain facilities in our own District 3. You need to see the images that give people the impression that there are two District 3s, right? One prosperous and one not so much. And so being visible, being accessible to organizations, to entities, to individuals who live and work in the district, being accessible to residents, being visible in these communities, you know, either by touring, by holding regular events. And of course, we have to be very strategic and very smart around where the events are held, such that they can be held in various neighborhoods throughout District 3, because, you know, they are distinct neighborhoods, right? So that people can see their commissioner, talk to their commissioner, make requests of their commissioner, right? So that they can keep their commissioner accountable as well. So it's all of the above.
Right, right. Okay, so let's go to education and health. What equitable initiatives do you foresee implementing to bridge health, education, housing, and economic gaps in our communities?
Thank you for that question, Yvette. And it's one that I have been thinking about throughout my role as a nonprofit leader, a partner to many of you on this call, and hopefully those of you who are viewing us. So for me, experiences such as the Overtown Youth and Children's Coalition, MCI, our current experience with Together for Children, I'm seeing a pattern evolve, and it's a pattern that I am liking, and that is creating a collective impact model that includes the organizations, the institutions that are community-based, if not neighborhood-based, to address these three key things, right? Because if we're working together, we've got a game plan, we've got a set of goals that we all buy into, we agree with and approve of, we can be working collaboratively towards solving those issues or attaining these goals, whether those goals are increasing health, right? Health and diet and physical activity, whether it's about economic development or job creation or job training or new opportunities for internships or apprenticeships or summer jobs for our youth, right? And even around education, what it is we do to partner with the school district to ensure that we are supportive of our local schools. The local schools view us as credible and trustworthy partners, that we can be the bridge or the partners that can address local neighborhood or community issues, because again, we work in these communities, we know our communities trust us, and we're the natural conduit to help to bridge.
I was waiting for everybody to get here. Okay, I'm gonna you.
Sorry. And so I think that these collective impact models are the way for us and brown and Black communities that are facing same disparities, same challenges, same issues. Some issues are more nuanced in some communities than they are in others, but essentially we're facing the same structural and systemic problems. And so the way to address them is to do so, in my view, through collective impact models that I would want to support financially. I would want to support in ways that bring access to public and private partners to ensure that not only is there buy-in, but there's financial support and commitment for the long-term impact that would benefit all of us.
Okay. So now some fun stuff. In closing, why you is what this is entitled. What do you think, what is your leadership style? Can you give us some examples of what, how you lead, you know, what that looks like? How do you show up for your leadership position?
That's a really great question. And so I would say that as a leader, I have adopted various leadership styles depending on the situation at hand. And in fact, we're all familiar with the term situational leadership. So depending on what's going on, you show up as the collaborator or the initiator, or that person who's going to be, the thorn on everybody's side to push things along, right? But you show up always willing to get it done, right? Always having the end result, the end goal in mind. And I think that's how I've performed. That's how I have been in my years of leadership, in particular at Sant, recognizing that I could have all these wonderful ideas, but it takes teams to get them done. It takes, you catch more bees with honey, as it were. And so there are times where you need to allow, yes, you need to push, but you need to also sweeten the pot, if you will. You need to allow for people's leadership's styles and examples to also emerge. So you need to be, you need to buy into collective leadership as well as collaborative leadership.
So what would
and
you
so the question, why me?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
But yeah, you can answer.
So why me? Why me? Because I have, I think, a total of education, experiences, professional and personal, nonprofit community experiences, relationships. I have lived in this community. I've worked in this community. I've worked in District 3 most of my professional life. And so I'm better prepared than most people, given that variety of experiences to serve, because servant leadership has always been at my core, a value to me, and wanting to make a difference in this community has always driven me. That's why I opted for a career in the nonprofit sector, and the examples, the accomplishments, the things I've been able to achieve through my experiences as a nonprofit leader have prepared me for this role. That's why me.
And your philosophy of life, how does that factor into the philosophy and in how you will govern District 3? Like,
my favorite is to do unto others as you would have them to do unto you, right? And so I know that I don't want to treat people as I would not want to be treated. But I think coupled with that too, I also believe that I have to look out for someone else, such that in return, someone else would look out for me, right? And so how this factors into this role is about caring for people, is about remembering that, but for the grace of God, I could be in some of the worst set of circumstances that our community members are in, right? That somebody might call me a success today is the result of a number of things that ought to be made available to all kids in District 3, right? The fact that what I want to do as a woman, as a nurturer, as someone who cares about people, cares about community, is show that when you want to get something done, it can be. But it also takes being able to collaborate with others. It takes being able to sometimes offer the moral arguments, the personal arguments, the intellectual arguments, right? To all bring people to understand your point of view and to support your vision for how you see a problem being addressed. And I believe I have all of those skills.
okay, I have a question from some of our community members as well. There have been some campaign ads that have not painted you in the best light. Would you want to clarify any of those accusations, or? I think you're muted.
First, let me say that 37 years into this community, 37 years of active service, leadership, participation, engagement, I am shocked that these baseless, mean, and untrue allegations, right? In fact, this morning we held a press conference, myself, with Commissioner Monestein, to address this issue, right? And so hopefully we'll be able to air some of that on all of the social media platforms that are painting me as someone who's a liar and a cheat and a thief, right? Again, I can't begin to say to you what this is doing to my mother, to my family members, my friends, my team members who are saying, what is this? What are we going to do? And here we are as a campaign, not having the kind of resources that you need in order to really tackle a response to such mean, ugly, baseless lies. And so I'm trusting in my maker. I'm trusting in the goodwill of community members. I'm trusting that the truth always gets out. And, you know, this camp will be painted for the faction that they are, right? With all of the negative assignments made to that family, to that brand, all of the ugly things that have been said about them, they're proving those ugly things to be true, because to smear me and to smear my organization's reputation in this way is the lowest of low, right? And so again, I've said to them, if you think that Gepsie Metellus did something wrong, take your case to Kathy Fernandez-Rondo as state attorney and say to her, look into this situation, right? But of course, this is about campaigning in the worst manner, this is someone, you do this when you can't run on your record. You do this when you have nothing to show for your years of service to your community or your years in office. You do this when you're desperate. So yes, I'm angry, I am annoyed, I'm hurt, but you know, this is one way of fighting back, and there will be other ways, and I'll let the voters judge.
Thank you.
Yeah. What is your plan to address youth development across all areas, homelessness, education, jobs, and careers?
So again, in terms of youth homelessness, there are several entities that have begun to focus on this. There is a project Fresh Start that the school district has initiated to begin looking at what the school district can do for homeless youth, right? Once they're identified, so that they can be monitored, followed, and provided the resources they need. So I think the Homeless Trust certainly has the resources to carve out a portion of their funding in support of this growing population. So I think that this would be a conversation that I would want to have with Homeless Trust leaders, as well as other leaders who are engaged in this sector, to figure out how we're going to create the solution to this problem. Because again, I'll remind you all, there's always a solution to an issue when you are committed to resolving it. It might take long, right? But it can be addressed, it can be resolved if you mean to address it. So that is related to homelessness. Now, in terms of youth development, I think that's a multi-pronged issue. It takes several partners, school district, county, local nonprofit organizations, especially those that work with youth, local funders that fund youth activities, figuring out how we guarantee that every child in this community has access to a quality, reliable after-school program, right? Whether that's for enrichment or for academic support. Personally, I'd like to see all kids in our community be involved in chess clubs, right? So after-school activities as enrichment, after-school activities for academic support, and those activities can lead to internships, apprenticeships, volunteering opportunities, so that these youth can learn the process of community engagement at a very early age, but not just for community engagement for the sake of being engaged. It's community engagement not only to hear, to bring forth, uplift the voices of youth, to have youth participate in proffering solutions to some of our problems, and to more importantly, have them engaged and being part of the solution, right? And then of course, I think that there are other institutions in our community, from Career Source South Florida, United Way, Children's Trust, all of these entities that do a lot to work and support youth. I think that if we can say, we want to be sure that the kids who perform well or academically demonstrate that they have made progress, they ought to be rewarded with some sort of maybe a summer job or after school job if their age and their school schedule allows for it. But I think again, in terms of youth, we need to be connecting them to opportunities early, opening up their horizons, making them understand what opportunities exist out there, what are the growing sectors, what are the new sectors, what they can do with their technological savvy, right? And create opportunities for them to be involved in contests, right? Contests to promote new ideas, progressive ideas, or even innovative ideas. I meant to say, not progressive, innovative ideas that resolve some of the issues that we're facing. And so for me, it would be sort of a wraparound kind of focus to ensure that we're touching children at every phase in their lives, in particular at their most critical age, the most critical age where they need the most support in order to stay on the right track.
Okay, I have a few more questions. What do you like most about District 3?
District 3 it's diversity. It is a place where you can get up in the morning and speak in English. You can end up then speaking Spanish or eating at a Spanish restaurant, and ending your evening speaking Creole, eating at a Creole or Haitian restaurant. In addition to that diversity of languages, of cultures, there's the excitement of the music, the art, the street scenes, right? The the moving around, so the congestion, the people, the growing energy, the development, the opportunities that we see abound, right? And all of these opportunities are reminding us that we need to do more to ensure that everyone can enjoy District 3 in the same manner. It is the best place to me in the county, given its diversity, its proximity to everything, you in the thick of it all, but you could also be away from it all, depending on where you live. You have access to the beaches, to the airport, the seaport. There's a lot to offer in terms of nightlife. And we've got wonderful neighborhoods, historic neighborhoods where we can promote local tourism just based on those assets, those very, very important local assets. And so we have a lot to leverage as a district, right?
I love the way you described that backdrop. That was perfect. So in relation to that, there is definitely a cultural divide that exists between those communities that you mentioned, African American, Haitian, Hispanic, American. What will be the innovative ways that you think that you will come up with a common agenda to address some of the issues that all of those communities face? Maybe some more than others, but there's definitely issues that we all have in common in terms of that. So how would you address that?
And so ethnic, social, socioeconomic, class, language, racial issues, or the makeup of our diverse community can be a challenge, and is sometimes a challenge in some communities more so than in others. And so I think as District 3 Commissioner, it is incumbent upon me to create opportunities, one, for dialogue among groups. And here I would focus in particular among the groups of African heritage, right? African American, Haitian, and other Caribbean folks, because I think we need continued conversations around our common heritage, as well as the common issues that we face as a people, right? The common structural and systemic issues that we face. I think we also need to expand those conversations to bring in other folks of brown communities who also face similar challenges, right? And we need to, I think, have conversations district-wide to include the various socioeconomic and ethnic groups of District 3 so that people can begin to understand what the root causes of some of the strife that we're going through, what the root causes are, but more importantly, what we can do together to address them. Because again, I'll say we're either going to survive together or we're going to perish together. And so in order to bring that message home, I would want to bring, create opportunities for people to share food and music. Those are always two very important elements that promote sharing and promote conversation. So we would want to see that, whether we're featuring the foods and the culture and the traditions and music of one group and another group another time. So we would go around the district highlighting our differences and making sure that people can have a taste of these differences, but more importantly, to create opportunities for not only difficult conversations, important community building conversations, and create cultural events too that highlight or sort of emphasize those differences, but for the purpose of sharing and appreciating. And I'm a big believer in movies, especially movies that are historical or that are documentary in nature, create opportunities for District 3 residents, all District 3 residents across the ethnic groups, the cultural groups and the language groups, to come together and watch certain documentaries together, watch certain movies together, conclude those with sharing a meal, and begin to have some conversation. So I think the sky's the limit in terms of how we can be creative. I know that there are many nonprofit agencies, cultural groups that do this, and I think we need to amplify it and amplify these issues or the challenges we're facing in context, so that all of us can always be mindful, can always remember that, for example, we're facing the risk of climate change, and so we're going to survive these risks when we come together as a community, right? It isn't that the Spanish speakers or the Creole speakers or the English speakers are going to be treated differently by a changing climate or by a hurricane.
Okay. And so I have two more questions. Well, three quick ones. Have you spoken to Commissioner Edmondson, and are there any projects or initiatives that you think that you will continue that worked really well for her that she might have started?
Absolutely. In fact, or maybe I'll remind everyone that Commissioner Edmondson did endorse my candidacy. And so we've had a number of conversations, in particular around the issues that are important to her. So I know that the gun violence initiative is one that I'm fully supportive of. I'm 2 feet in with that. I'm supportive of MCI. That's a good example of the collective impact models that I was describing earlier. So this is something that I would not only want to maintain, but want to expand and bring to other neighborhoods throughout District 3. I would want to also ensure that we create a District 3 advisory group to be made up of the voices, the multiple and diverse voices of residents in the district who could inform, advise, and bring up issues that need addressing, right? And of course, Commissioner Edmondson is absolutely very much committed to increase prosperity for District 3 residents, as well as District 3 small businesses. So one of the initiatives that benefit residents is, as you know, the Children's Savings Account. This was passed recently. This is, to me, one of the best tools to invest. Not only does it make a bold statement in a community, in a neighborhood, and a family, that a community believes in its children and wants to give the children a fighting chance at success. So I think expanding the Children's Savings Account is one of the things that I would most definitely want to do. And of course, continuing to work with the chamber, the Miami Chamber, and the various other chambers to figure out how we expand economic and financial opportunities for our small business enterprises, but also to grow jobs, to increase jobs in District 3. I think these are 2 key issues that have to be addressed. And we have an opportunity, I think, right now, given what's going on in this country, given the urgency of coming to terms with the history or the legacy of racism, the legacy of discrimination, the structural and systemic issues that Black and Brown communities face in this country. So this is an opportunity to advance a cause that would benefit us all. So this is something that I would most definitely continue with in furtherance of Commissioner Edmondson's legacy.
How will you address the gentrification that is happening in Overtown and Little Haiti? Rent rise, loss of community, identity, housing, and so on. What would your plan be to address that?
That is one of the greatest challenges of District 3, just as it is a challenge in many other communities throughout the United States. But the good news is that we've seen some best practices, we've seen some examples of strategies that work to mitigate against the negative impact of gentrification. And for me, I would want to be sure that first and foremost, we help current homeowners and these neighborhoods retain their homes, retain their properties, and maybe work with them to ensure that if in fact they must sell, that they sell to next of kin in order to keep the properties in the same families. So I think you work with families and community residents to do that. I would want to see a special program. It exists already, but it would need to be expanded to help homeowners to renovate, to maybe do some things to change out windows, to take care of roofs again, to protect property values, right? I would also want to bring to Miami-Dade County this program that I'm hearing about in the Midwest. It's a project to help people pay their tax liens or property taxes without the fear of being evicted. It's called pay as you stay. So you owe, and instead of having you face the loss of that property, you have an opportunity to pay off your lien or to pay off your taxes as you remain in your household. So I think that that's another example of a good strategy that apparently is working in some of the parts of the country that we can replicate here, or rework so that it makes sense for our local community. But bottom line, we have to do all that we can to keep our current homeowners in their homes. We have to be sure that new construction includes affordable rentals, right? We have to be sure that any new new housing development includes opportunities for first-time home buyers. So the housing, the units or the homes have to be affordable for these first-time home buyers. And especially, we've got to be sure that there are opportunities for our millennials to return to Miami-Dade County once they complete their college education, right? Because if they are not provided an opportunity to hope that someday they can buy a starter home right here in Miami-Dade County, then we would have lost them. They're not coming back. And so if we're going to address the brain drain that Black communities in particular are facing, that's going to have to be a focus. In addition to incentivizing, all sorts of things for entrepreneurial activities by millennials.
So we are so appreciative of your time today and sharing with us and answering our questions. I just want to have you close out. Why should we vote for you? What makes you the best candidate for District 3 County Commission seat?
Thank you. So first, let me thank Overtown Youth and Children Coalition for this opportunity. Let me thank each and every one of you who joined in. And let me also thank the viewers in the wider Facebook world. Thank you for this time. Thank you for your questions. They were very deep, and they're questions that have been on my mind. They're questions that I have been dealing with or thinking about prior to my candidacy for the County Commission in District 3. And so I am your candidate of choice because you know me, you trust me, you know my work, you know my history in this community, you know that I'm in this for the community, you know that I will put each and every one of our community residents first. I am not pursuing this opportunity for some sense of self-aggrandizement. This is an opportunity to serve, and it fits very naturally and very nicely in my 37-year career of service. And this is one last way to do so in a more impactful way. So I am looking forward to your support, to your vote. I hope you will vote for me, number 73, And I promise you, you will not regret. And I also promise you that you will see meaningful change in District 3.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was a great conversation.
I think so. It was very thoughtful. Thank you.
And Gepsie, this is great, and just like to just really thank you again. This is just so heartfelt and authentic and engaging, and we do wish you Godspeed, success in your efforts. You know, outside of the politics, you've definitely been a voice and an advocate for the community all along. So we're really looking forward to seeing how this turns out. And and just, you know, we're here to champion you, but I really got another insight today, and I really appreciate the real sincerity that you brought.
Thank you, Graylin. Thank you for those kind words. And you don't always choose your path, right? Very often it's ordained. It's pre-chosen for you. So I found myself embracing this opportunity because I thought I would do a good job. I thought I would bring in the voices that for too long have felt that they didn't have a voice in what's going on in our communities. And I think the work, the experience, the experiences that we've had in our sector have prepared me for this role. And so I look forward to serving you, serving everyone with the honesty, the integrity, and the dignity that you know me for. So thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Tomorrow we have a lunch conversation with Commissioner Daniela Levine-Cava. Hopefully you can join us for that. And with that, we will close out for today. Thank you all so much.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Gepsie.
Pleasure. Thank you, Ms. Yvette. Great moderation. Thank you. All right.
Yeah.